Welcome back to another exciting episode of Meanwhile Back on the Podcast. I'm Frank McGuire.
I'm Kristina Dudemas.
I'm Saba.
Hey everybody, welcome back. This is part 2 of the M and MCU is for Multiverse. We're going to move pretty quickly into this episode, but before we do, check out this quick preview of what's coming up. And also, I'm starting to question this idea about whether the Mind Stone really gave her powers. Because she's got the powers of telekinesis, she's got the power to read minds, she's got the powers to basically manipulate physical matter. She can even manipulate air, like she can build force fields, she can do all this shit, right? And then her brother was supposedly, like, got his powers from the same stone, but he's a speedster? Like, it doesn't make any sense, you know?
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to be the big bad for the phase. I could see him being tied to WandaVision and the Multiverse of Madness movie, though, because I think there's also some element to him entering people's dreams through trauma connection as well.
Yeah.
And I think
and
Scarlet Witch. Yeah, he's and it does seem like Scarlet Witch has moments where she's confused and she's a character that's experienced trauma. He could be exploiting her powers for his own gain as well.
Meanwhile, back on the podcast, 4 colossal nerds named Saba, Chris, Kristina, and Frank have set out to take on a great darkness that has enveloped the world of fandom with their powers of common sense and the strength to take on even the most butthurt Twitter mobs and insufferable comment section trolls. They fight for truth, objectivity, and nuance in the conversation and debate over fictional made-up shit.
I wanted to start off with, the major through line, our entire conversation has just been kind of based on this multiverse idea. And there's certain things that are happening in the MCU that kind of hint to this multiverse concept. And one of the other things that I'm kind of lightly focused on, not so much, I think is going to play a huge role into this multiverse narrative, but I think is Thor 4. It's been confirmed that Jane Foster in Thor 4 is going to be, like, the cancer storyline is going to be a part of that story. The major Mighty Thor, Jason Aaron, Jane Foster cancer storyline that was in the comic books, that's going to be a part of Natalie Portman's character in Thor 4. Did you guys hear that?
Yeah. I wonder if she was supposed to confirm that. That was what I was, or if that was an accidental slip. But I guess the comic's out there and people know enough about the story.
Yeah.
That it just could have been whatever.
And I know we've definitely talked about it being a possibility on past episodes of our show. So.
That they would do the cancer storyline? Yeah, we did talk about it. I'm excited to see what they do with this because one of my big complaints with the Marvel movies have been that their emotional depth and their emotional spectrum has been lacking in a lot of them. I'm not saying Endgame, I'm not saying Infinity War, but I'm saying that in some of them we just don't get that cerebral kind of, that cerebral jolt. It's kind of very surface. We get a lot of great action set pieces, some incredible performances, but I think that with this that they can do something very exciting with it. Now, here's another thing I want to throw at you guys. So I finally read the Ragnarok storyline in the comic books because it happens in Avengers Disassembled. It's part of it. And from what I can see from where Taika Waititi took this comic book, it is so different. It is ridiculously different. He basically took Thor Ragnarok in the comics and he mashed it up with World War Hulk. Like, he basically took those two stories and mashed them together because in the Ragnarok comic book story, it takes part in Asgard, and it's a very spiritual, personal journey for Thor. Hela is not a major villain in it. She does appear. So I don't know what Taika has up his sleeve for this storyline for Jane Foster. And after what I've seen him be able to do in other films, the way that he tells these very interesting, whimsical stories, even if they're sad stories, he always kind of finds the whimsy in them, Like, for example, Jojo Rabbit, right? It's a great movie, right? It's a great movie, but he somehow finds the whimsy in this, this very depressing and very sad story about this kid's life, and what he goes through and what his mother goes through, and ultimately the end. Like, I hate to say this, but at the end of that movie, there was still a sense of whimsy at the end of that movie, even though what happened to his mom. So I'm excited to see what Taika Waititi can do with a character that's suffering from a terminal illness.
Well, yeah, I think that's the beauty of Taika, and I don't think it's going to be a beat for beat remake. I never thought it was going to be beat for beat.
Yeah.
In terms of him able to find like the whimsical stuff, like even for something like Jojo Rabbit, there was these moments of sadness and levity, and even at the ending, it was very bittersweet. I'm not going to say anything, but he found soul through this lens of this young boy, and I feel like he can do that, and I feel like he's a good enough director to be able to do that. And the one thing I will say about the depth of character, I do agree with you that, Marvel isn't known for its heavy sort of dramatic scenes.
Yeah.
That's not really their thing. But I will say Scarlett Johansson, Natasha inside Endgame to me really represented that, though, because, you could see that she was almost unhinged and with everything that she was going through. And I think that is such a realistic reaction. And I think that's what we like. There's superheroes and everything else, but there is this like real part of it. And to see Thor going through some sort of loss again, I think it will be really interesting to see how he takes that, because he loves Jane, whether they're together or not. He still has this love for her.
Yeah.
And to have to watch that. So I do wonder how he'll play out, the Ragnarok vibe with this new sort of storyline.
Yeah. No. Yeah, because go ahead, Saba. Or go ahead, Kristina. My bad.
Sorry, I would argue that they kind of touched on depression in Avengers Endgame.
Oh, for sure.
With Thor's character and what he had to go through. So I would, and I think they did find the balance between making it too heavy and still having fun with the overall plot of the movie. And I think they did one of those things where his friends came to his rescue and like helped him to find purpose in his life again. And I don't know. I feel like we're gonna see Taika being able to balance the light moments with the heavy moments and the dramatic moments. So
I do wonder.
He's totally capable of. So.
Yeah, I do wonder though, and this is like the big question: is how Mjolnir is gonna find its way back.
Yeah,
that's like the big thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people are saying, it's Loki. It's that time traveling trickster.
That's why I put this movie on the list to talk about this multiverse conversation, because Mjolnir comes back into the mix. Jane Foster becomes Thor, apparently. But then again, there's also been comments or statements saying that Chris Hemsworth is going to continue to be Thor. So I don't know if it's two Thors. I don't know if Jane Foster is officially Lady Thor. I don't know what the deal is, but do you guys think that Jane Foster becoming Thor is going to be an after effect of whatever happens in this multiverse shakeup? Or do you think it's just going to be Mjolnir finds a new worthy wielder?
Well, maybe something is going to happen to the actual Thor to make him unworthy of the hammer.
Yeah, that already happened though.
Yeah, that's
okay.
That's basically the plot of Thor 1.
No, but I thought he redeemed himself.
He did.
And stuff. Yeah. Okay. So.
Yeah. But like he didn't lose his hammer because he was unworthy. Hela destroyed it, right? And then he got Stormbreaker. Stormbreaker is that the axe, right? And then he got the hammer back when he went to time traveling, right?
Maybe I'm confused about when this Thor movie is going to take place.
Well, it's going to be, I think it's after Spider-Man, right? It's after Spider-Man 3.
This is the thing. I think it is.
But is it going to be taking place in its chronology in the MCU 4 timeline, or is it somehow going to be wedged in between other Thor movies?
Sorry?
No, it's taking, so this movie takes place inside the Phase 4 timeline. It's after Endgame. The thing, though, I feel with Mjolnir, like, how is it going to get there? Like, there's theories that they'll find the remnants of it that Hela destroyed.
Okay.
And they, like, piece themselves back together. Like,
Okay.
that Jane finds it while researching, and as they, like, piece it back, she's the one who's, like, for whatever reason, able to lift it.
Mm-hmm.
The other popular theory is it's Loki, fucking up the multiverse even more with his shenanigans.
Right.
That's all Doctor Strange needs. He's really just trying to fix this. So there's that. But I don't know if you guys, and we can stay on this topic, but this is something I want to talk about a bit later. I don't know how you guys feel about this movie in terms of the other movies of Phase 4, and if it feels a little out of place because it doesn't, like, unless it involves, like, the multiverse, which, it seems like the other movies are going to, that it feels kind of just, like, dwindling, Not dwindling, but it's kind of like, I guess Ragnarok was off-world when Thor was in in the last movie. So I guess there's that too. He was off-world doing whatever. But this will be on Earth. So.
Well, to answer your question from my point of view, Saba, is that so Shang-Chi won't have anything to do with the multiverse. The Eternals could be anything. Black Widow is a prequel. That's pretty much it.
It's Eternals,
and then the Falcon and Winter Soldier, these are all grounded street level kind of stories. So my perception of what's happening in the MCU in terms of the multiverse, where I see it being affected, is Spider-Man 3, obviously. Just talked about that on the last episode. By the way, guys, if you didn't listen to part 1, please go back and listen to part 1 because you don't want to miss that. Anyways, Spider-Man 3 for sure. I think Thor could be affected by the multiverse thread. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think that makes sense if, like, all the movies are kind of impacted by it. If
they won't be, though. I don't think so. Like Shang-Chi is a street level martial arts character. Like he's the son of a crime boss who, decides to walk a different line in life, right? And he develops these powers, and he's a skilled fighter. So it's more like he's more of a street level character. Actually, he's more of a street level character than we've ever gotten.
It will make sense if Thor is impacted by it.
Yeah. But that's the thing, though, is what I guess what I really meant by that, because Shang-Chi is a brand new character.
Yeah.
But you think that, like, Thor is like an original Avenger, whereas, Doctor Strange and Spider-Man are not really original Avengers. So it was kind of in that vein that they're not really crossing there. But I do get it. And with Eternals, and this is, we'll talk about at the end, but maybe we'll bring it up. I like you said, I don't think the Eternals are too involved with that, but the Eternals could be involved with the X-Men somehow, because the Celestials, like, and we've talked about this before, introduce the X gene. If there is an X gene, who knows in this universe? But so there is, like, a bit of that. But yeah, I do wonder how it'll play. I guess because, like, the other stuff seems so grand, like the other storylines. That's why I'm wondering, I know I'll watch it and like it for sure, and it'll be great. But I do wonder, what they're going to pull out for this one.
Well, it's going to be fucking wacky. And I think the reason it stands out on its own is because Taika is behind it. Like I said, I read the Ragnarok comic book, and it's nothing like what we got in that film. Nothing like that. Valkyrie is in the comic book. By the way, her first name is Broomhilda.
Broomhilda.
I hope they maintain that.
That's
I hope
fun.
that gets revealed at some point, because
she'd hate that.
A woman of color named Broomhilda would be awesome. That would be amazing. But yeah, Taika, like I said, he's got this way of world building where he can take something that's already whimsical and make it even more whimsical. Right. So I don't know what the hell he's going to do with this thing. I think it's going to be, like a like a mashup of a White Snake video and a Thor movie with, like, this rom-com story kind of underneath it. I don't know who the villain's going to be. Everybody's kind of, like, hinting that it's going to be either Gore the God Butcher or Dario Agger. And there hasn't been any further talk beyond that. So nobody really knows what's going on with the villain. I think until they let us know who the villain is, nobody's going to really know what this fucking movie's going to be about. So
yeah, for sure. It's pretty bare bones in terms of information we've got.
Yeah.
I mean, we know the characters in it, and we know, what comic they're kind of referring to, but like you said, it could be anywhere.
I think they're
going
going to tell us that Doctor Strange is going to be in it.
Yeah, he'll be in it. They're just going to pop Benedict Cumberbatch into each movie.
Nice.
You know?
Nice. But
it's like Nick Fury. It's like Samuel L. Jackson. He's got a contract. I got to be in each one.
Yeah. I think Doctor Strange is going to be the Nick Fury of Phase 4.
Well, we're going to talk about Nick Fury at the end of this because I want to talk about him in the final thoughts because there's something revealed about him, you know, in this whole Spider-Man 3 story too, that I think is going to play out across one of the villains that I want to get into as well. So yeah, no, you know, again, I think that this movie has the potential to kind of fall within that multiverse thread as well. Cause one, it'll help provide some sort of narrative to get Mjolnir back into the mix after Cap took it back into the past again. And then it'll obviously give Jane Foster something in terms of changing her life to give her an opportunity to be this person, to be Thor. Because right now, because like all we've known about her thus far is she's an astrophysicist, right? She's an astrophysicist, and she hasn't even been in the mix, you know, for, you know, we saw an analog of her in Endgame, but that was it. Like, we didn't really get to, like, you know, she didn't have any dialogue or anything. Her intern has been more involved in Marvel than she has in the last little bit, you know, Darcy. So, and again, trying to figure out how she fits into WandaVision is kind of crazy. But anyways, so let's move this along. I wanted to talk about next is obviously Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness.
I love that title. It's
a fantastic title. And honestly, you know, I think that we're going to have a couple of sidebars where we'll go into WandaVision a bit just to kind of make sense of this. But I think that these movies are inexorably connected. You know, we've heard comments where people have said that this is that WandaVision is a prequel to the Multiverse of Madness. And last night I was thinking to myself, because I was preparing for this episode, and the one word that jumped out at me was madness. That's the one word that jumped out at me. And as soon as I heard the word madness, I thought of Wanda Maximoff. I was like,
she gets pretty unstable in the comics, I guess.
Yeah.
Is prone to create things that are not real.
Yeah, and also from what we've seen in the trailer, it does seem like there's some kind of alternate dimension stuff going on there.
Yeah. So you know, Saba made a great point. She is an emotionally unstable character in the comic books, 100%. You know, she's killed her own team. You know, in Avengers Declassified, she killed 3 Avengers. She killed her husband. Spoilers. Sorry. If you haven't read it, it was printed years and years ago.
It's not really spoilers. Yeah, it's like decades old.
Decades old. So
yeah, there's an expiry date on spoilers.
Yeah,
I think.
There's definitely an expiry date. So, but yeah, she literally takes out Hawkeye. She takes out Vision, and she kills Scott Lang, who was the Ant-Man at the time.
Didn't know that she killed
I don't
Scott
think she's
Lang.
going to take out Hawkeye in this. Though.
Well, she didn't.
Crazy.
She didn't directly kill Hawkeye. One of the constructs she brought into reality was this Kree army, and then Hawkeye like sacrificed himself to blow up one of their ships.
Ooh, okay.
I would be so sad if she like took him out of the MCU, because I actually like him in the MCU a lot.
Well, that's why they've been playing up their relationship for so long, right? Like they've always been like, you know, father-daughter kind of like analogs, you know?
But I do see I think I know where you're going with the theory with what you just said before though, but I won't.
Was I going anywhere? Oh.
No, you with the anyway. Cuz yeah.
So the point, where I was going is like the word madness just jumps out at me, and I really think I think we're going to have to touch back on WandaVision a bit, because that's the only way this conversation is going to make any sense. So we see in WandaVision Wanda crafting this idyllic life for herself, right? She's got kids. She's living like within, you know, prototypical, you know, 30-minute perfection of the family sitcom, right? From one decade to the next. She's got kids. She's got a husband. But I think at the end of WandaVision, that's all going to be taken away from her. And it's just going to be this fucking punch in the face of reality. It's just going to be boom. It's going to be like, this is not your life, because that's exactly what happens in House of M, where she realizes that her kids she manifested her children. She manifested her children, and Agatha Harkness was the one that basically did a magical abortion on them, right? To kind of like take them out of her life.
Man, so, comics are next level weird sometimes, I tell you.
For real, dude.
Love the stories, but
dude, dude, House of M is so good. So good. And it's not just good for the whole Wanda story, it's good for the world that she puts everybody into. Because like Wolverine's like leading this the Wolverine's like leading a shield group. Luke Cage is like leading this like street resistance group. And it's and the mutants are the predominant species on the planet. And like Magneto is like this royalty. He's like a member of royalty. It's pretty pretty awesome.
I definitely read it. I just don't remember like everything that happened.
Yeah, I know it's pretty expensive.
The main through lines I remember.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So I really think that WandaVision kicks it off, right? WandaVision kicks off the MCU for Phase 4.
So we definitely think WandaVision is at least partially based on House of M.
There's parts of it. They're going to take some themes from it. They're going to take some trauma from it for sure.
Yeah, and I think the trauma is always what sets Scarlet Witch off. So yeah.
Yeah. And that's why we're going to have Wanda Maximoff is going to be our big bad at the end of Phase 4.
Yeah, I think so too. She just has so much power. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And it was also to the point where I think as part of House of M, a bunch of characters were trying to find a way to eliminate her as a threat, weren't they?
Yes, they were. They had a giant meeting.
Yeah.
And they're like, yo, man, how are we going to cut this bitch out? What are we going to do?
No, they were literally like, Charles Xavier got everybody together, like the Avengers and the X-Men. And they were like, we have to do something. And Wolverine's like, let's take her out. Let's get it over with. She killed 3 of your teammates.
She's also self-aware of the fake reality that she's creating.
She's very self-aware. She's extremely self-aware.
She knows that it's fake.
Yeah.
And then some of the other characters don't know that it's fake, and some of them do. So I think we're going to see that play out as well in WandaVision.
I'm glad you brought this up.
People's reactions to things, it kind of looks like some people know what's going on and some don't.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought this up, because the character that brings everybody's awareness to what Wanda's really doing is Stephen Strange. Mm-hmm. Doctor Strange is the character that comes to the Avengers and comes to the X-Men and says she's behind all of this. Like the way
Isn't Wolverine also one of the characters who kind of knows what's going on?
No, he doesn't pick up on it. He just thinks it's okay to kill her because of what she did. So like Strange says he's been tracking her magics, and like she now has chaos magic, and her friends, like her close friends, like Carol Danvers and Janet Van Dyne, who's the Wasp, they're basically like, yeah, we've had conversations with her, and she said some things about chaos magic and hex magic and all kinds of other stuff, and Strange is like surprised by this. So this makes sense. Marvel is definitely going to follow this very popular story. I don't think it's definitely not going to be a panel for panel adaptation, but they are going to use this Wanda Maximoff and Doctor Strange kind of, relationship.
So for this theory, and I have a counter for it as well.
Sure,
I think there's one thing that though before, because I do like it a lot, and I think what would really work with it is that audiences are already really sympathetic to Wanda. She's been through a lot.
She's fantastic. I love her.
And Elizabeth Olsen, such a great Wanda as well, I feel. Yep. So we're already sympathetic to her. And then if we see her like lose this even more, and then, having to see Doctor Strange and everything go up to her, it's like a different type of battle than you saw with Thanos. Because, Thanos, you're like, we're all up against him. But with Wanda, it's like this girl like has suffered so much. And I don't know to what degree she'll do this if this ends up happening, or how much havoc she'll wreak.
Yeah.
So I can see that there. That being said, there are other theories for Doctor Strange and this new movie coming out in terms of the big bad that is in it. And the one that is really popular that people talk about is Nightmare. And the reason for this is when Scott Derrickson, the original director, was on it,
right,
he was saying that this is a character that he wants to use and have to be the big bad. And as we know, Nightmare is the ruler of the dream dimension. And in the comics, he's known for putting Strange through like all these weird trials and like dreamscapes and everything else. And they say that the Multiverse of Madness has like a horror feel to it. Like it'll be like a scary movie. And so for that, I can see them going the Nightmare route because he could create these like really maybe like horrific sort of scenes. So I do. Yeah. So I kind of can see that going in. But does Nightmare feel like a big enough big bad for like a whole phase? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to be the big bad for the phase. I could see him being tied to WandaVision and the Multiverse of Madness movie, though, because I think there's also some element to him entering people's dreams through trauma connection as well.
Yeah.
And I think
and
Scarlet
exploiting
Witch.
it.
Yeah, he's, and it does seem like Scarlet Witch has moments where she's confused and she's a character that's experienced trauma. He could be exploiting her powers for his own gain as well.
Well, see, that's the thing, okay? Like, even if we take away everything even if we don't even consider what could potentially happen in WandaVision, Wanda Maximoff is one of the most traumatized characters in the MCU, without a doubt, right? Not only did she lose her brother, not only did her entire home get destroyed, right? Not only did she lose her brother, not only did she be blamed for like the death of like 50 people in Nigeria, right? Like these are all things that have kind of played into her. She watched her, and she had to kill her boyfriend. She had to kill the man that she loved to save the world. That has a pretty, that's gonna have a pretty heavy effect. And think about the timeline in which all of that happened, right? Wanda didn't kill Vision in Endgame. There wasn't a 5-year reprieve for her, right? It was literally like dominoes just fucking lined up. Like, I'm going to kill you. We're going to kill your brother. Then we're going to make you kill your boyfriend. And then, we're going to, there's going to be this 5-year fucking where the world has just gone to absolute shite. Right. So one, as she goes into WandaVision, I don't think she's in a good place at all.
No, she seems to kind of be holding it together at Iron Man's funeral, but
yeah, true. But then again too, I think that the one thing I'm so latched onto is this word madness, right? The multiverse of madness. And people could say what Wanda created in House of M was a multiverse of madness. That's a good definition for it, right? So I really think that Wanda is being set up to be the big bad of Phase 4. Now, whether that carries over or not, I don't know. Now,
I don't think she's going to be the big bad of all of Phase 4. I think somehow Doctor Strange is going to save her in the Multiverse of Madness movie.
I don't know, man. I really don't. And also, I'm starting to question this idea about whether the Mind Stone really was like gave her powers, because she's got the powers of telekinesis. She's got the power to read minds. She's got the powers to basically manipulate physical matter. She can even manipulate air. Like she can build force fields. She can do all this shit. Right. And then her brother was supposedly like got his powers from the same stone, but he's a speedster. Like it doesn't make any sense.
I'd be so pissed if like my sibling got that and I could just run fast.
It's pretty good to run fast though, man. It's pretty good to run fast.
I know.
Maybe it's like your limitations to how fast you can run are all in your mind. And once you get rid of those, you can run as fast as you want.
Yeah. No, I mean, no, speedster is cool, but I do get your point. It is kind of...
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense, right? And whenever and also, let's go back to Infinity War for a second, real quick. She destroys the same thing that produced her. Why didn't she lose her powers?
That's a good question, Frank. I think that it was already it's like a part of her. It is weird. I do think it's weird because I guess Captain Marvel kind of has a bit of the same thing going on with
the Space Stone.
Yeah.
But
even then, the thing is, the reason why I get it is because those two characters, like Scarlet Witch and her brother, are originally like, X-Men characters, and not small ones, like very big, important X-Men characters.
Mm-hmm.
And they had their X-Men powers in this movie, but it is due to a stone this time. But with them wanting to introduce mutants, you know what I'm thinking? If she is the big bad, whatever she does, like that fucks things over, is a thing that introduces some sort of like X gene or the mutants or whatever else. Like it's definitely coming from Wanda. Like if there's X-Men coming in, it's from Wanda. What
if instead of saying no more mutants, she's like mutants?
Yeah, exactly. It's just going to be the reverse.
Mutants, give me mutants. I want mutants.
Yeah.
I hope not. I don't want to see it.
No, that'd be stupid. That would be the dumbest thing for anybody in the history of comic book movies to be remembered for. Mutants.
It'd also be like so random because they just don't exist, and you're like, what? Like,
yeah, what the fuck are those, Wanda? What the hell are you talking about? But going back to her power set, because I do think that this is relevant to Doctor Strange, because like I don't know, man. Like I don't. There's there are theories that say that she's always been a mutant and that the Mind Stone was what triggered her power set. Like, and the same thing for Quicksilver. That makes sense. And the same thing for Quicksilver. Like she's always been a mutant. That's what people are contending. Now, sticking on the mutant idea for a second, apparently the rumored big bad for Black Panther 2 is going to be Namor, who is the first mutant.
Yeah.
Right? So, but like, that's a whole other fucking rabbit hole we can go down. Maybe we should do an episode on just mutants. Just be like, where are they going to come from and who are they going to be? But anyways,
I have a theory. Because it's the Mind Stone, so it's connected in the mind, and maybe these mutant capabilities were always there. What if Wanda changes enough of the world, or her sort of force field of this imagined world that she creates spreads so far that when they do save everyone, it's fine. But because she has that power of the Mind Stone in her, that she triggers that in other people who would have otherwise not have had that triggered, like that mutant X gene.
She spreads the X gene. Wow.
Oh no, I think what Saba's saying is some people have the X gene, but it's suppressed.
Oh, okay.
She's gonna enable people to
that could be cool.
Suppress it.
Like
that could be cool.
Like that, or however other way. But if that is the case, if like the stone just opened it up, and maybe it could have to be the Mind Stone for that to happen, because that is like, whatever in your brain or whatever. What if I could see something like that? I don't know.
How many times do you think Kevin Feige has gone up to a brick wall and like smacked his head into it and be like, why couldn't Fox just give me the goddamn mutants like 10 years ago? Why? I
don't know because then I think if you introduce too much at the beginning, but it would have been awesome.
I know, but it would be easier. It would have been way easier. Like now they have to explain it. Like, where did these people with this gene come from? You know what I mean? But anyways, so one of the fun rumors tied to Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness is that we're going to see all kinds of different versions of existing legacy characters. And one of the big rumors is there's going to be a Tony Stark played by Tom Cruise.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, that's weird.
I don't know.
I guess that makes sense. Like, I guess if you're going to have multiple Spider-Man, you're going to have multiple Iron Man.
Like there's going to be an Iron Man played by Tom Cruise. That's going to be the rumor. Now, do you think that, okay, so going back to what Saba was saying about Scott Derrickson's idea for this film, he wanted to be a horror-based movie, right? Mm-hmm. Has anybody been able to find anything from Sam Raimi that says that there's still going to be a horror theme to this?
No, I don't know if I've seen anything or if you guys have, but what I will say is that Marvel seemed excited and was labeling this as like their first horror movie. Yeah. So I don't see them moving away from that when the whole team was on board.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. So maybe because would Tom Cruise's Iron Man really fit into a horror motif? I don't think
he's
so.
terrifying. He's terrifying.
Oh,
jokes.
I mean,
Take that,
I feel
Tom
like he
Cruise.
could play. Yeah, I feel like he could play a dark Iron Man.
maybe.
Iron Man can be because yeah, I feel like Iron Man wouldn't have. He didn't have to play the role he did in Endgame. Like he was perfectly happy to just be selfish and live his own life.
True.
So I think there could be a version of Iron Man that's cold-hearted and just does those kinds of things.
Well, I don't know if that Tom Cruise thing sounds likely. That doesn't seem, I don't know, unless he really wants to be in a Marvel movie. I mean, maybe that's his new thing, but I don't know. That seems like more of a thing that I don't think is as likely to happen.
But then also, doesn't Thanos exist in all these other universes too? Because in that one scene where they did the snap, I think wasn't there a signal from Doctor Strange to Iron Man that there's only one possible universe where he doesn't exist?
No. There's only one possible outcome. Yeah, Doctor Strange went back in time in Infinity War to find which outcome, like what order of events they had to happen to have them be victorious.
Yeah, but then doesn't that mean that if different events occurred in different universes, then he could still exist in other universes?
Well, he definitely does, because the multiverse theory is universal, right? So, like, there's a version of me who is, like, in the Canadian Armed Forces. There's a version of me who's a professional ice hockey player.
There's a version of you that's dead and one that isn't, right?
Well, no, I don't know about dead. Like, they're like,
know. Well,
what would the point of being
a
dead person in the multiverse like that?
Well, let's say there's a version of you that takes more risks and you succumb to an accident in a different timeline.
Sure.
Right.
Sure. Well, yeah, I don't think it's about life or death. I really don't. I just think it's about multiverse, or like I think it's just a different iteration, a different version.
If there's a different version of Iron Man, that means that there's got to be a timeline in which Thanos still exists.
True. Well, my hope is that they stick with this horror motif. I think that would be really cool, because it falls into what I want to see, which is like one of the things I like about Marvel movies is that they take another movie and they mash it up with a comic book movie, right? They're really good at that. Ant-Man was a heist film. Captain America, Winter Soldier was a spy thriller, right? They're really good at doing those, and I want to see them do more of that. So if they can take a character like Doctor Strange with his gothic kind of appeal, his metaphysical, whole vibe, and they bring it into the horror genre, I think that could be really cool. Obviously, they can't do it too crazy because they want kids to be able to go see these movies, and they want it to be able to be uploaded to Disney Plus and people still watch it. So it won't be too nuts, but I could see something along the lines of what we got in Shazam, right?
Yeah. Well, Raimi is known for Army of Darkness, right? Which is like a pretty campy horror movie.
True.
Yeah.
True.
So I feel like if he is going to do it, he'll be able to do it in a way that's suitable for Marvel.
Kristina makes a great point. Sam Raimi is the new director, right? And, Sam Raimi is known for some very campy, very kind of cotton fluff horror, right? Nothing too over the top, very kind of, surface kind of horror stuff. Like,
I kind of want it to be over the top, and I want it to be like...
You want like The Conjuring with like Dr. Stephen Strange?
Yeah, why not? I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of horror movies.
I don't like horror movies at all.
I have seen The Conjuring like 3 times. My mom is obsessed with horror movies. So growing up, like family movie night when I was a kid, I remember one time they chose Sixth Sense, but thank goodness I was a kid. I did not understand.
That's not a horror movie.
I fell asleep, and then she's really, and like she only watches like thrillers, and which is why we could never watch a show together.
Yeah.
Because it has to be like a thriller of some sort, whether psychological or scary, but like that's all she watches. So because of that, I've seen a lot of horror, but not because I've wanted to. But the reason why I do want to see a Doctor Strange horror movie is because I think it would be awesome. I think it'd be really cool. It wouldn't scare me like some of these other movies have, but I think I do want to see how dark they can get. And I think it's like you mentioned this, it's like a gothic type character, like, he is. Yeah. So I think that would be so awesome. And I would hate for them to stray away from that.
I think they're also dealing with a really powerful character. Like, I think somehow Wanda is going to be tied into that. and
Oh,
she's
she's gonna be
basically
tied
like
into it for
a
sure.
very powerful schizophrenic. So I think even that struggle with mental health is gonna play into there as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah,
we're gonna
no.
have to address that, and I think it would get real. So.
Yeah, no, but like again, I think if you factor in what could potentially happen to Wanda in WandaVision and you look at it being the start of the story, like, you know, any good storyteller wants to take that, you know, that first part of the journey and kind of turn everything on its head by the end, you know? So that would be a very logical transition for her, is to go from good to bad, to break bad, right? Especially if she's going through all this trauma. It only kind of makes sense. But
And
then
she's done it before as a character. So definitely there have been versions of her that have been bad. So.
Yeah. I just hope this one is as visually stunning as the first one was. Because the first one is a visual masterpiece. Like all the crazy Inception shit. Like it basically looked like a love letter to Inception. Right?
Yeah. I don't think we're gonna get that kind of a tone or vibe with this movie.
I don't know, man. We'll see, I guess.
Because Raimi's done what? Like Army of Darkness and the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, right? So
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, they do have that kind of like dark vibe to them too. So I don't know.
But what if we get like an emo Doctor Strange?
Yeah, that's where I see this going. I could see an emo Doctor Strange.
Isn't he already emo? He's kind of emo.
He's already emo. But what if he's like?
Emo.
What if he's like Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 3?
Yeah,
is what I mean.
Nice.
But yeah, no, I think there's a lot of possibilities for that one. I'm really excited for that like lineup from WandaVision to Doctor Strange, and even now that Spider-Man is kind of in the middle there, or wherever it is in the story.
Do you guys think Tom Holland will appear as Spider-Man in the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness?
I don't know, like he might, because okay, is that the last major movie of Phase 4?
Yep.
Then yeah, I feel like he might have an appearance. It's not so. It seems like Phase 4 seems like a transitioning phase to me, right? It's not like, you know, this full phase that, you know, the last one was. Obviously, Phase 3 was like it led up to the big whatever. So with that being said, it kind of makes sense that maybe this phase is for like Wanda getting right, like, you know, back into her self again. So I can see that in that case, her being the big bad. And then, yeah, maybe Spider-Man won't be, actually, now that I think about it. I don't know.
Well, I think that the major challenge for Doctor Strange in this movie is going to be putting the world back together. I think that's really going to be the crux of it, right? And
it'll be on him because they messed it up.
Yeah. And no, it'll be on Wanda.
It'll be on Wanda, but I mean, like the actions of Endgame, I think, is what really fucked up like this whole multiverse thing. And then I think
I agree.
And then Wanda, I think, is only going to make things kind of worse with whatever she's doing.
Right.
And I think it's going to get just super out of hand. It's going to be a big old mess.
Yeah, but see,
I don't think there's any way that Steve Rogers like put all the stones back and everything was great.
Yeah, I
think for sure he messed something up.
I think they fucked up a lot
south.
With that time traveling. Like it was just so like, I was like, I don't know how I feel like, you know what I mean? They definitely messed up for sure. And then you have Loki around also screwing things up.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot being done. And I think Wanda is one of the most powerful mutants, or I mean Avenger in this universe.
She's definitely one of the most powerful. Yes. 100%.
So, you know, with what she's doing with her old reality, I think there's going to be a lot for Doctor Strange to have to try and, like, you know, clean up what they basically created.
Yeah. No, he's definitely going to be on a cleanup mission for sure. You know, there'll definitely be some sort of foil kind of opposing him as he tries to, you know, right the world. But then again, this thing kind of goes off the rails, or this line of thought kind of goes off the rails because, you know, there's this talk of this horror motif that's going to be in the film. Like, what's this place going to look like? Cronenberg world? Like, what the fuck? Like, it's like, you know, it's like a world of like creatures and shit. You know?
I don't know.
I don't get it. Like, if it's a multiverse story, then the multiverse has to be somewhat resembling the real world to be a multiverse. right? In some way. I don't know, but it's
I feel like he's
it's
going to be like in
interesting.
between worlds.
Frank,
Like, I don't know. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go, Christina.
I have another theory too. Do you think the What If series is just going to help us to establish like the different dimensions and
no.
what might be going on in these other realities?
No, they just want to tell
No.
cool stories. That's all. Like that's all What If has ever been. You take a cool character, you kind of twist them up.
If they did do House of M,
Yeah.
if they did do House of M, then they could play up on that, right, and tie it in to
what?
the House of M kind of like how Wanda created those alternate realities for those other characters. That could be what If is.
Yeah, that could happen,
Right.
but no, but like What If has already been established. It's just going to be just like the comic book. They're going to give us a 40-minute snapshot of what this character would look like if they were someone else, right? Like there's going to be Peggy
Yeah, but that
Carter
doesn't mean
is
it
going to
doesn't
be
have to tie into anything.
Sorry?
It doesn't mean it's not going to tie into anything.
Well, I think when it's animated nature and it's short narrative, I don't think it can tie in. Like I don't think there's going to be any through lines. I don't think one story is going to connect to the next with What If. I think that the TV series, as far as like the live action TV series, will thread within the film narrative, but I don't think that the What If animated series will thread within the film narrative at all. I think it's just going to be all disconnected. Okay. Like one of the stories I know that they're going to be telling is T'Challa becomes Star-Lord. Peggy Carter becomes Captain America. I think they're doing Spider-Man becomes the Punisher. Like there's,
Spider-Man becomes the Punisher?
I think so.
That's interesting.
I think so. I think that's what they're going with. But yeah, anyways.
That's kind of disappointing. I feel like they could have leveraged that to help build up their multiverse or tie into WandaVision or something.
Yeah, it may have helped, but it is what it is. But let's get some final thoughts here because we still some other things I want to cover. I want to talk about Kang and, Jonathan Majors being casted as Kang or rumored to be casted as Kang for Ant-Man 3. He didn't really fit into this WandaVision box. He didn't fit into the Spider-Man box. He didn't fit into Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness box. So, I kind of left him to the final thoughts because he will play a role in this larger story for sure. Especially if Loki is going through fucking, time and space, fucking everything up. Kang the Conqueror, I think I said this in the previous episode, but the dude's basically like Genghis Khan with like better tech and the ability to time travel. He's got like, he's got tech from the 30th century. So like we're talking, he can teleport. He's got shields. He's got anything you can imagine. He's not only that, he's got his own fleet, his own space armada that we've seen in the past. So I'm thinking about how this Multiverse of Madness thing could potentially end. Like, what could be the final setting, the final place. And I can't help but look back at the Dark Phoenix. Not the Sophie Turner version, but when, in X-Men 3, when, Jean Grey basically begs Wolverine to kill her, right? Because she knows that she can't control her powers. I think that's maybe where we kind of might be headed because in House of M, Wanda makes it very clear to her family that she knows that she's out of control and that in some way she believes herself that she deserves to die. And I don't know if you guys know this in House of M, but it's Pietro that puts the idea in her head that she can give everybody the life that they really want. She can make everybody happy. And that's exactly what she does. This reality she creates before she does the No More Mutants is apparently the life that kind of everybody wanted to lead and be happy with. Spider-Man, Peter Parker, he even finds himself waking up in bed with Gwen Stacy the next day after she kind of changes reality for the first time. So, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think there could be this standoff scene at the end where she's willing to sacrifice herself and we lose that character out of the MCU?
I don't think so. I don't know. I feel like with Doctor Strange being in this, that he's going to be able to help her control her magic and her powers. But I don't know. Saba, do you have a different view on that?
I guess because it's the end of the phase, so it feels like there needs to be some sort of
finality.
Yeah, some sort of moment in there.
Yeah.
But I do believe it'll be a redemption story just because of the way the MCU works.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that redemption will end in death. That would be a pretty powerful thing. But for a character that's just gone through so much trauma already, it would be a really sad end, you know? Because
Yeah.
you want her to be happy and live some sort of life.
Sure.
But that would be gutting for sure if they did that.
And also, we don't know if she's going to be being manipulated. If she's being manipulated, then you hope that she would be able to be saved.
What if
But
she
we
dies?
don't know how conscious she is of what she's doing.
What if she dies giving birth to Wiccan and Speed?
Oh,
That could
dies
be
in childbirth?
interesting.
No,
Yeah.
it's not like,
But
I don't like the dying in childbirth storyline.
I know, but
there's so
it's-
much technology and medicine and magic in the MCU.
Like, who does she think she is? Queen Amidala? Come
Queen
on.
I was going to say Queen Amidala. But yeah, but like it could happen, and in the comic in House of M, it is Doctor Strange that tries to help her, but
Mhm.
he gets to a point where he can't help her anymore. Like, you know,
Yeah.
he literally, you know, it's one of those conversations in House of M where he like literally sits down next to her on the bed, you know, like when you're trying to like talk down your friend. You're like, hey, you know, your life's kind of going off the rails. You know, have you considered talking to somebody? Like, it's one of those
Maybe
conversations.
Professor X shows up and helps her
And this one, I don't know. I don't know.
at the end of Phase 4.
I don't know, man. I don't know. But anyways, but yeah, no. So
I hear you're a powerful mutant. We have a skull. You should come over.
no more
Yeah.
mutants. No more mutants. But anyways, yeah, no. Let's move this along. So I wanted to get in some final thoughts here because there's a couple of points I want to touch on because I think that they're important to this multiverse time travel kind of narrative that's being weaved throughout all these MCU properties. We haven't talked about this guy yet, but I want to talk about Kang, and I want to talk about where this potentially could head with Phase 5 and how that kind of fits within what we've already seen within source material, especially right after House of M, because I think that this may be where things are headed, and it may make Kevin Feige's life a lot easier and give them the opportunity to not repeat the past mistakes of other studios. So how much do you guys know about Kang so far?
I do know that, you know, he's a time traveler. He can time travel. He's from the future.
Yep.
He's, you know, a conqueror. He takes things over. He thinks everyone else is like very primitive. You think he has the right to rule, you know, all the makings of a villain, really.
Genghis Khan, basically, with time travel
Yeah.
powers and a lot of weapons. He's also the
Yeah.
descendant. He's also the descendant of Reed Richards.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, that I didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Fantastic Four.
Damn.
Which has posed an interesting question. People are starting to ask now, is Reed Richards going to be an African American? Not to say that a white person, you know, 10 centuries before couldn't, you know, result in an
Yeah.
African American 10 centuries later, but you know, it's definitely something being pondered. But yeah, he is a descendant of Reed Richards. So this dude literally shows up when the time stream goes off the fucking rails. Like when something happens in the past that inadvertently affects his future in a way that he's not happy with, he comes back to that time to find out whoever's responsible and is like, you know, it's time for the old Inquisition. Like, you know, brings in space armadas and, you know, weapons and all kinds of tech and whatever, and basically just wrecks shop, just takes out whoever's in his way. And it's kind of nasty. Like this dude, compared to Thanos, he's an Omega level threat for sure. Like Omega level threat. So, and he's going to be apparently, like, this idea about him being an Ant-Man 3, I think is weird. Cause like, you know, if you ask me, Scott Lang is a street level character. You know, he can shrink himself and he can make himself big, and he's an Avenger, sure. But like, he's not really the guy that like goes to space and fights space villains and all that kinds of shit. Right. So
I think it has to do more with the pseudoscience of Ant-Man 3.
yeah, I think it has a lot to do with the science too, like the
Yeah.
quantum realm and all that. Cause I think all these things kind of come into play. But yeah, so any thoughts on Kang, guys?
I don't know. It does seem like he will just be an Ant-Man 3 villain. I don't know. I don't think.
You don't
Unless
think he's
they're
going to be bigger
introducing-
than Ant-Man 3?
Well, he might be, but there needs to be more than just him. Like even with any movie before sort of the big ones that had Thanos, they had these other characters as well. Like Thanos was the big bad at the very end that they really had to, attack. And there doesn't seem to be anyone else mentioned. It does seem like at that time everyone's going to be really busy and with stuff. So, and by busy I mean like the Avengers are off doing things, and so it feels like it might be a Scott Lang problem. I wonder if we'll see like Falcon come in and jump in as well, or sort of have these other cameos in that movie.
Sure,
I can see that. But I don't know. I don't really know if I see. I honestly think Phase 5 is going to be more about mutants than Kang.
Okay.
Yeah. I think bringing Kang into Ant-Man 3 is kind of just like a way to bring in the Fantastic Four into the world. And then I think there's even bigger villains that the Fantastic Four have to fight. So I see one of those other villains as being one of the big bad.
Yeah, I just hope it's not Mole Man. I don't want to see Mole Man in a cinematic version. He's just a weird like looking character. Definitely want to see Galactus. I'm down for Galactus for sure. Okay, but I see something happening in the MCU that wasn't done in the previous phases, and they're getting more relaxed about bringing different characters into different other characters' stories. Like they're really messing with the alchemy. Like it's not necessarily the same formulaic approach that they had in phase 1, 2, and 3. Well, like you get one standalone villain and you get him against the hero, and then it's like, big collision at the end, and then there's this other big bad waiting in the wings, waiting for his opportunity to strike, right? So
but I think they don't have to do origin stories as much this way, and then they can build more stories simultaneously.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think the fact that they don't have to write origin stories anymore, it allows them to open up the gates and be able to get more creative about who they bring into other people's stories, right?
And I don't think they want to write origin stories. I think people are tired of superhero origin stories, and they don't want that.
To a degree. I want to see Wolverines again, but it has to be good. I want to see the whole thing, Canada, the whole 9, but I don't know. Anyways, but my point of bringing this up is that maybe just because Kang is going to be in Ant-Man 3 doesn't necessarily exclude him from being the bigger bad in the picture as we move down, because again, we're not, it's no longer following that formulaic approach, right? Like we're no longer going to get.
He seems like a pretty messed up dude, but yeah, I just don't know if he's going to be the big bad of the whole phase.
Well, he is an Omega level threat, and he's made a career. He's made a name for himself fighting the Avengers and the Fantastic Four, right? And the Avengers are literally the crown jewel of the MCU properties, right? So, and then again, Loki is fucking around through time. So there's a lot of opportunities here to fuck with time, especially with what they did in Endgame. So maybe Kang is coming back after what happened in Endgame to spank everybody.
But isn't there going to be another Avengers movie in Phase 5? Was there not
in Phase
rumor
5
about that?
There won't be one in Phase 4, but people are saying that Multiverse of Madness is going to be the level of an Avengers movie with crossover.
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. So if there is an Avengers 5 in Phase 5, is it Avengers 5? I guess so. I don't even know at this point.
Yeah, it'd be Avengers 5.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So if there's one at this point, at that point, I don't think that they would introduce it in an Ant-Man. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see it likely being Kang. I don't know, just because of the existence of that other Avengers movie.
Gotcha.
That'll be there. That I think that I guess that'll probably be at the end of the phase too. I don't know. Here's the thing. Right now, at this point, they can go any which direction because they've talked about mutants, and that's something I'm excited for. But from the lineup of Phase 5, I was looking at it again. It doesn't seem like there is much mention other than Namor, obviously.
Yep.
But there's nothing.
Well, and Evan Peters, Quicksilver. Like if he's showing up in WandaVision, right?
Yeah, that is a for sure thing. Then we have that. I hope they just don't sprinkle one or two. Like, give me a mutant storyline.
Well, we established in this episode that Wanda and Pietro could have been mutants, and
yeah, for sure,
this Mind Stone just unlocked their innate abilities, right? So who knows?
And the Eternals is supposed to have a connection to mutants as well, and also they're pretty big beings. I feel like that could also give us a hint as to who our big bad could be in Phase 4. I feel like Eternals is gonna kind of kick things off in a way.
I think Eternals is going to be great. I think it's going to be exciting. I think it's going to be a multicultural smorgasbord of settings and places and people. I really feel like it's going to borrow from that Netflix series, Sense8. I think we're going to see a lot of what we saw in Sense8. I don't know if you guys watched that series.
I haven't. I've heard a lot about it.
You guys would love it. Saba, you'd be all over that shit.
Oh man, would I? All right.
Yeah, you'd be all over that shit. Kristina, you'd like it too, but like definitely Saba, you'd be all over it for sure.
Okay.
It's really good. It's got a lot of emotional depth. It's really good. Anyways,
I know my brother watched it. He talked about it a lot.
It's pretty good. And it was done by the Wachowskis too. So, but yeah, anyways, before we wrap up, I want to talk to you guys real quick about where you think kind of everything is headed, because like I said, I think in the previous episode, I just finished reading the class of Avengers Disassembled. Just finished House of M. And after House of M, basically the X-Men are down to 200 powered mutants. Most of everybody else has lost their power sets. And the Avengers have to be, like, there has to be a new group of Avengers put together. And there's a couple of X-Men in the Avengers when they reassemble. So I haven't heard Kevin Feige ever officially say, like, even when he, when they first announced Phase 4 and then people were like asking him about Fantastic Four and the X-Men, he didn't say the X-Men movie. He said, we're bringing you mutants.
Yeah, he specifically said mutants.
Right.
But I don't know. That guy says a lot in general. He likes to talk.
He does.
So, but and Marvel does have sometimes a way. He has done this thing where he's called things out and it hasn't quite happened, but mutants is quite a big claim to make.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm lending more towards that theory I just made up. Well, I don't know if that is going to be the case, but more that the X gene is slowly going to be unlocked in people.
Okay.
Maybe because of the snap, maybe because of something else. I don't think they're just going to be around existing without us knowing about them.
Well, let's look back at what happened to your favorite character, Saba. She got exposed to a Terrigen crystal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Miss Marvel.
Miss Marvel did.
Got exposed to a Terrigen crystal, and I think that was after Secret War, right? Like when they did the shakeup. So she got exposed to Terrigen crystal. Quake got exposed to a Terrigen crystal. So the idea that somebody could, inadvertently come in contact with some sort of catalyst to unlock powers or to develop powers or to manifest powers is not a foreign concept to the world of Marvel, right?
No.
It was a giant through line in Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the TV series. So maybe that's something that does come into play. I didn't even consider that. Maybe they do the same thing with the X gene. I don't know, but
it could be. But like you said, he never said X-Men. He did say mutants.
Yeah.
I do think that, that does mean they are going to exist. I think they're moving towards that. But I think it's just it's going to be really hard to establish them into the storyline and have it make sense.
Totally.
And have it not just be totally out of left field. Because as much as I want to see mutants come into the MCU, I don't want to see it done haphazardly.
Neither do I.
Which it doesn't seem like they will do. I'm giving them, obviously, I'm thinking like worst case scenario there. They have been good at weaving these stories in and out thus far.
Yep.
But this is like a big one. So.
Well, I think the smoother transition could be introducing, legacy mutants or high profile mutants or, fan favorite mutants into the Avengers first. Right? Because then you don't have to establish why haven't we heard about the X-Men? Right?
So you think they wouldn't be even like really mutants, but like
no, they'll be mutants, but they'll be part of the Avengers
instead of an X-Men. Okay.
Well, because that's what they do
that
after
happens.
House of M, right? Like if you start looking at the chronological timeline as to what exactly happens after House of M, like the Avengers get reformed and there's a couple of X-Men in there. So it's something that they could probably get away with, Yeah, I
Well,
don't know.
the
Maybe
X-Men are also pretty secretive. They don't really like live out there.
That's true.
They kind of deal with Shield and like Nick Fury when Nick Fury wants them to. So
yeah, but they
I
only
feel like Nick Fury could be aware of their existence.
Yeah.
and not everybody else necessarily has to be.
yeah, but they only deal with like they're very vocal. Like yes, they've dealt with villains and they've dealt with enemies that weren't mutants, but primarily they feel that the role that they fulfill is to fight other mutants. Like that's their whole idea.
What if
right?
instead of flashy superheroes, they're more like spies in this world?
I don't know. Maybe that's something that could be played out. Who knows? But anyways, this has been a fun conversation. Thank you, Kristina. Thank you, Saba, for joining us. Thank you to all of you who are listening. Thank you for tuning in again. We really appreciate all your love, all your support. If you haven't yet, please head over to Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Podchaser and drop us one of those reviews. Those reviews are awesome because they help us improve the show. We take your feedback very seriously, and we would love to hear your thoughts, your feelings, any ideas, any suggestions you have for future episodes. We'd love to hear those. If you want to hear us do more of any particular episode, also let us know that as well. Also, if you're not following us on Instagram, check us out at meanwhile_pod. Same thing on Twitter, meanwhile_pod. And we've got some YouTube content up these days too. You can find us at Meanwhile Back on the Podcast on YouTube. So be sure to check us out on all the social medias. Yes, I'm calling them social medias because I don't know a plural that would make any more sense than social medias. So